Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? We're jumping into 1 Samuel chapter 23.
Yeah.
Where we find David on the run from King Saul. It's a story of courage, trust, and some seriously close calls. Imagine being hunted by a king, relying on your faith and a few loyal friends. That's David's reality. And it's about to get intense.
Yeah, this chapter really reveals a lot about David, especially when you compare him to Saul. He's facing these impossible odds, but consistently turns to God for guidance, which is so different from Saul, who,
Yeah.
is often impulsive and paranoid.
Right, so let's set the scene. The Philistines are attacking the city of Keilah. And David, never one to back down from a fight, hears about this and asks God, should I attack them? And get this, God actually answers with a resounding yes.
That's so important. It shows David's leadership. Unlike Saul, David seeks divine counsel before making big decisions. It's like he's saying, God, I'm not doing anything without knowing your will. Such a powerful example of humility.
Totally. So David trusts God, leads his men to victory, saves Keilah from the Philistines. You'd think he'd be a hero, right?
Well, that's where things take a turn. Saul, who is obsessed with getting rid of David, sees this as his chance. He thinks David's trapped in a walled city. This is it. Suddenly, Keilah becomes a death trap.
Oh, wow. What a twist.
Yeah.
So what does David do? He doesn't just wait around, does he?
Nope. David senses danger
Yeah.
and does what he always does, seeks divine guidance. He uses the ephod to consult God.
I'm seeing a pattern here. Pray first, act second. Is that common for leaders in the Bible?
It's definitely not the norm. That's what makes David so interesting. He's not afraid to ask for help, even with military decisions. And he doesn't just ask once. He consults God twice.
Wow. And what does God say? Stay and fight or run.
God confirms the danger.
Yeah.
Says that the people of Keilah, the people David just saved, are going to betray him. Hand him over to Saul.
No way, that's harsh. Do the right thing, and you still get betrayed.
It's a tough world. This is where Abiathar comes in, the priest. He flees with David, brings the ephod with him.
Right. Abiathar becomes super important for David, not just as a priest, but as an advisor. So, thanks to God's warning and Abiathar, David and his 600 men escape just in time. But his troubles aren't over. He ends up hiding in the wilderness of Ziph. Desolate, dangerous. You can feel the pressure building.
And that's where we see one of the most amazing acts of friendship. Jonathan, Saul's son, risks his life to meet David.
Wait, Jonathan, the king's son, whose father wants David dead.
Yes, he goes out of his way to support David. He knows his father is wrong. David is the rightful heir.
Wow, that's powerful. Defying his family, to stand by his friend. True friendship at its finest.
Absolutely. And it's not just a visit. Jonathan reaffirms their covenant, the promise that David will be king. This is an act of faith.
I'm already inspired, and we're just getting started. David's story, full of twists and turns, makes you wonder how he keeps going. Let's keep digging into this chapter, see what other lessons we can find. So we left off with David, finding strength in his friendship with Jonathan. But the wilderness of Ziph isn't exactly safe.
Yeah, things get even more complicated. The Ziphites, who should be helping David, decide to betray him.
What? Seriously? They go to Saul?
They go straight to Saul. Tell him where David is hiding.
But why? I mean, they live in the same area. They probably know David, maybe even benefited from him being there.
It's a tough situation. Shows how dangerous David's world is. He can't even trust his neighbors.
So are they just being opportunistic, hoping Saul will reward them?
Maybe. Or maybe they're scared of Saul, afraid of what he'll do if they protect David.
That's a good point. It's a moral dilemma.
It really makes you think.
Okay, so Saul takes off after David again. Can you imagine the stress? Knowing an army is on your trail?
The story really captures that tension. Saul is getting closer. Looks like David's done for. But then something amazing happens.
Come on, don't leave me hanging. What happens? Does he escape?
Just as Saul is closing in, a messenger arrives. Bad news. The Philistines are invading.
No way. Talk about bad timing.
Saul has to turn back. Forget about David. He has to defend his kingdom.
Wow. It's almost like someone's watching out for David.
Right. You have to wonder, is this just coincidence or divine intervention?
It's pretty incredible. That's what makes this story so good. Twists and turns, moments of hope. Makes you think about those times when things seem impossible. And then something unexpected changes everything.
Absolutely. David's story reminds us, even when we feel surrounded, even when all hope is lost, there's a power bigger than ourselves that can change things.
This episode has been packed with insights about leadership, friendship, faith. David's story is ancient, but so relevant to us today.
It really is.
So how do we apply these lessons to our lives?
That's the beauty of it.
We can connect with ancient wisdom and find principles to guide us.
Like David seeking God's guidance.
Yeah, that's a constant theme. It makes me think, how can we do that today with so much information out there?
That's a great question, one we can explore further.
Let's see what else we can learn. As we continue this deep dive, it's amazing how David escapes from Keilah. Like just in the nick of time, thanks to the Philistines. Makes you think about those times when everything seems to be going wrong.
Yeah.
And then, bam, something happens.
Yeah.
And it all changes.
It really does. And what's interesting is, even after that, David doesn't lose faith. He keeps relying on God, even when it means waiting.
That's a good point. It'd be easy to get discouraged, to try and force things to happen on our own timeline.
Right. But David, he gets it. He understands there's a bigger plan.
He's patient.
Exactly. And that's a huge lesson for us. Patience, surrender.
Yeah. David could have given up, tried to take the throne by force, but he waits. Trust God's timing.
And that's powerful. Sometimes the best thing we can do is wait,
Trust that things will work out.
even if it takes longer than we want.
It makes you think, where do I need more patience in my life? Am I trying to control things I can't?
Those are good questions. When you feel stuck, frustrated, remember, David, surrender to something bigger, trust the timing.
This has been an incredible deep dive. David's story might be old, but it's so relevant today. Surrounded by enemies, facing huge obstacles.
But true friendship, faith, seeking guidance, it can all light the way forward. David's story asks us, where do we find our strength? How can we have that kind of faith, that loyalty, that trust? Something to think about.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. See you next time.